Okay, guys, so I'm going to show you how to make a graph with your science fair data. Based on your research questions, most of you guys will be making a bar chart, so that's what I'm going to make today. If you feel like you maybe should use a different type of graph, then in class or at lunch or wherever you feel comfortable, we can talk one-on-one about how to make different types of graphs and why those might be used. But based on your research questions, I'm pretty sure all of you guys will use this type of graph. So I'm going to make up a research question for my example that's different from any of the ones that you guys did. I'm going to do, how does the amount of dissolved sugar in water affect surface tension? So if I were looking at that, I might design an experiment where I dissolve different amounts of sugar in water, and then I tried to float little paper clips on top. And if I had only a few paper clips float, then that would say, the surface tension is not very high. But if I could float a bunch of paper clips on top, then the surface tension is higher in that type of water. So let's just say that I'm going to dissolve 5, 10, 15, and 20 grams of sugar in different cups of water. Remember, I'm going to do more than one trial for each of these measurements. So I'm going to do trial 1, trial 2, and trial 3. Again, most of you guys have 3 trials or more, maybe, if you chose more. If you don't have 3 trials because it just didn't make sense for your experiment, that's fine. Your graph just might look a little different, but this is going to kind of hit the majority of you. Okay, so here are my different amounts of sugar. That was my independent variable. I changed that. Here is where I'm going to put my data from my dependent variable. So for me, I'm measuring how it affects surface tension. And like I said, if I'm designing this experiment, I'm going to see how many paper clips can float. So this number that I'm putting in here is the number of paper clips. If you did algae growth, then you would put like the grams of algae that grew. If you did how much weight a bridge could hold, this is where you would put the weight that bridge held before it broke, that kind of thing. So this is where you're putting the results that you recorded from each of your trials. So I'm just going to make up numbers here so we can populate our graph. But let's just say more sugar decreases surface tension. I actually have not researched this, so I'm not sure, but I'm guessing. So I'm going to put some lower numbers down here. And some higher numbers as we go up. Oh, and I need to add in insert row above because I didn't have a control. It was a poorly designed experiment. All right. Okay. So let's say this is what I got for my data. So here are my 3 trials. I've got my different amounts of dissolved sugar over here. I've got my number of paper clips that I got to float over here in my 3 trials. And this first graph that I'm going to make is going to show my data from all of my trials. So what I want to do is I want to come over with my cursor and I want to highlight just this number data. You'll notice I'm not highlighting my research question and I'm not highlighting a bunch of other empty cells. I'm just highlighting my data. And then I'm going to come up here to insert, and I'm going to insert a chart. Okay, and it actually already popped up with a column chart, which is what I want. But if you didn't want a column chart, you could come over here to the right where it says chart type, and it drops down to lots of different chart types. Like, let's say you wanted it to be this way instead. I personally don't like how that looks, but maybe you do. Maybe you actually need a line chart rather than a bar chart. Again, let's discuss. If you think you need a line chart, we can talk about that. That is for continuous data. So like if you were tracking something over time and these were seconds, then a line chart would be appropriate. But for most of you guys, you had separate things that you were testing, in which case a bar chart is the most appropriate. Okay, so This chart looks pretty good, but I want to edit it a little bit. So, oops. Let's find my charger. All right, crisis averted. All right, I'm going to come in and I want to customize it. So I'm going to come over here to customize. I'm happy with my chart style, but I do want titles. So my horizontal axis title, that's my Y or my x-axis down here on the bottom. So these numbers represent the amount of dissolved sugar in grams. So that's what I'm going to title it. And remember, you definitely want to include your units there. Then I want a vertical axis title too. So I just dropped down from up here. Instead of horizontal axis, I selected vertical axis title, and then I'm going to type it in here. So along this axis, those numbers represent the number of paper clips or the amount of paper clips. I'm going to say floating paper clips. Okay. And then it has a chart title, but right now my chart title says Trial 1, Trial 2, and Trial 3. That's a terrible title. So I want to rename that. I want to get rid of Trial 1, Trial 2, Trial 3 up at the top. And I want this title to reflect both my independent and my dependent variables. So I actually want it to be pretty similar to my research question, but not in question form. So I'm going to write the effect of dissolved sugar. I'm going to spell dissolved right. Dissolved sugar on surface tension. So I have now in my title included both my independent and my dependent variables. So that's a good title. If I had done my experiment over a certain amount of time, if that applies to you, then that's something you might want to try and incorporate into your title as well. And you can also come in here and mess with colors and that kind of thing. That's up to you. You will be able to print in color if you would like. But as far as the basics go, that is how you make a graph. And then if I wanted, I could copy this entire little graph here into my other document. So if I wanted to put it in my lab report or print it larger so that I could put it on my board, I could do that. Okay? All right. That's it, guys. It's pretty simple.